that Stormhill shack, Shard paused beneath the distant shadow of Stormveil. The road ahead led toward a castle of thorns, old oaths, and a lord who had stitched borrowed strength upon himself. Where Roderica had once trembled beside the fire, only a golden seed remained. Even absence could leave behind a gift. The one seed was no longer enough to strengthen Shard's dwindling flasks. Before challenging the castle, she reconsidered her small collection of sorceries. The weaker stars were set aside, while crystal magic remained. Shard had not come this far to abandon the discipline that had shaped her. One final ward was prepared for the shield, for the fell Omen waited upon the road ahead. Stormveil's approach was guarded by soldiers and a waiting ballista. So Shard abandoned the obvious road. The surrounding woods, however, proved no kinder. Her crystal resonance soothed two soldiers into harmlessness, yet neither lifted a blade in her defense. Peace, Shard discovered, was not always the same thing as loyalty. On her second approach, she chose her subject more carefully, the ballista crewman turned his weapon upon his former comrades, and Stormveil's gate learned the value of well-placed acquaintances. The skirmish yielded enough runes for a modest strengthening of body. It was little, but beneath Stormveil, a single breath more could divide survival from a nameless death. Yet Shard's Crystalian spirit remained little more than an unpolished promise. Before facing the Omen, she returned to the round table hold in search of someone who could awaken its strength.
Greetings. Nice to see you again. My name is Roderica. Isn't this place in the round table hold? I never knew the guidance bestowed upon us tarnished, although it's all a bit much for me. I'm still looking for my own purpose. It's all a bit much. I'm still looking for my own purpose.
Well, I took you for no matter, it's all the same. Lay out your arms then. The girly boy here. She's crestfallen and can scarcely swing a blade, but she has a gift for spirit tuning. I saw another one like her long ago. Their eyes share the same hue. I see you've noticed the chains. Nothing special. I'm a prisoner and these are my chains. I'm Trez, all there is to it. No, I've no grudge against you. My being a prisoner is no fault of yours. Besides, I don't mind smithing. Despite my differences, the weapons get stronger all the same. Besides, it helps me forget.
Smithing master Hugh saw in Roderica what fear had hidden from her.
It's all a bit much for me. I'm still looking. You're telling me I possess some kind of gift? I don't believe you. But if I do have this talent, and goodness knows it would be my first, I suppose I should try to hone it, shouldn't I? I'll ask Master Hugh to teach me. Certainly he does appear intimidating and holds no love for us tarnished. But I know he's trapped here at the Round Table Hold, so I can tell. He's a gentle soul, and if I do have a talent for, I suppose I'll ask Master Hugh.
The rare gift of spirit tuning.
Back already, no matter. The girl. What about... Are you out of your mind? Who'd stay with an ugly brute who only knows how to smith? Absurd. I refuse to believe it. I don't doubt you, but I know when something's too good to be true.
A craft capable of drawing greater strength from ashes that still remembered life.
If I do, I suppose I should try and ask Master.
With hesitant courage, Rodrika accepted the path placed before her. At the table of lost grace, another wandering soul had found a purpose.
Good to see you again. I have you to thank, don't I? I can happily announce I'm as yet unsure of, but if I might, if there's any chance to ease the suffering of mine, well, I certainly must try. Roderica, the spirit tune apprentice.
Purpose, however, demanded payment. Shard possessed the grave glovewort, but not the runes required to strengthen her Crystalian companion.
Well, I took you for dead, no matter. Lay out your own.
And so scholarship gave way to necessity. A pair of trolls waited near the War Master's shack, and in the lands between, even the study of spirits was sometimes funded by violence. Shard tested Crystal Barrage against the lumbering trolls. Its glittering stream looked impressive, yet achieved remarkably little. Once again, spectacle yielded to the simple certainty of a spear. Trolls soon turned their strength upon one another. One fell beneath the other's blows, while the survivor succumbed to the strange resonance carried by Shard's weapon. The crystal spear could lull even giants into unnatural sleep. Two had fallen with little resistance, and confidence suggested that a third would provide easy payment for Rodrika's work. Third troll slept, staggered, and seemed nearly defeated. Shard grew careless. A single blow ended the lesson. Routine remains one of the lands between's most patient executioners. She returned without ceremony. The troll was broken, forced into sleep once more, and finished before confidence could betray her a second time. Runes were carried back to the round table hold under Roderica's guidance. The Crystalian spirit grew stronger.
Greetings.
Its silent stone form now better prepared for the trial ahead. Body, shield, and spirit prepared, Shard rode once more toward Stormveil. The soldiers along the road were ignored, the fell Omen waiting. Beyond them could not be. Shard disturbed the thoughts of two guards, hoping confusion might become allegiance. They merely watched when sorcery failed to inspire loyalty. The spear resumed its less diplomatic work. Charmed ballista gunner opened fire upon Stormveil's defenders, then struck Shard from behind. A clouded mind, she learned, was not the same as a faithful one. Death returned her to Stormhill, for she had neglected the grace within the tunnel. On the next approach, caution finally prevailed, and the castleward tunnel became her foothold beneath the gate. This time, Shard reached the ballista from behind and bent its gunner's will before battle began. Soon the gatehouse erupted into violence, its soldiers uncertain who among them remained an ally. She left Stormveil's garrison to its confusion. Disorder had served its purpose, and beyond the tunnel waited Margit, the fell Omen, guardian of the path into the castle. Before crossing the mist, Shard reinforced her shield. Margit had ended the journeys of countless tarnished. She intended to offer him more resistance.
Foul tarnished, in search of the Elden Ring, emboldened by the flame of ambition.
The fell Omen descended upon the path to Stormveil, bearing his crooked staff and the golden weapons of his hidden power. To him, Shard was merely another unworthy intruder. Shard answered sorcery with steel, moving between swift glintstone shards and the reach of her spear. Beside her, the Crystalian advanced with the tireless patience of living stone. Margit found neither hesitation nor easy prey. Magic, spear, and spirit wore him down together, and the guardian of Stormveil fell before Shard's advance had truly begun.
The hands of the fell Omen shall brook thee no quarter.
Even in defeat, the Omen's threats lingered upon the wind. Shard answered them by strengthening her frail body. Stormveil would surely provide opportunities to test the wisdom of that choice.
You there? Come over here, would you? You're tarnished, aren't you? I would advise against taking the main gate into the castle. It's tightly guarded by hardened old hands. Oh, try the opening right here. The guards don't know about it. You'll breach the castle undetected. Fair enough. You certainly don't have to trust me.
Gatekeeper Gostoc advised the hidden path along the castle walls. Shard instead chose the main gate, trusting that confused minds and crystal sorcery might succeed where caution would have served better. The defenders answered with bolts large enough to tear a rider from the earth. Stormveil's gate had little interest in subtle magical experiments, and even less patience for confidence. Forced back to the Grace, Shard reduced her arsenal to a smaller, more deliberate selection. Fewer spells meant fewer distractions. At least that was the theory. Shield warded and sorceries prepared, she attempted a quieter entrance into the castle. Stormveil remained unimpressed by the improvement. The first attempt ended beneath Stormveil's ballista fire. On the second, Shard waited until stone stood between her and the bolts before weaving the ward around her shield. Once inside the gate, she turned the defenders' thoughts against one another. Soldiers and ballista crews became unwilling accomplices, and Stormveil's courtyard descended into convenient disorder. While the garrison settled its newly discovered disagreements with steel, Shard gathered what they left behind. Victory was considerably less exhausting when one's enemies performed most of the work. offered a grace above the ruined courtyard. Below, the dead lay among those whose clouded minds still mistook Shard for a friend. She saw little reason to correct them. A lion guardian prowled the passage beyond, a beast bred for war and bound to Stormveil's defense. Shard slipped past its claws and claimed the grace upon Limgrave Tower Bridge. There, silent figures of Banished Knights stood in solemn formation, monuments to warrior. With retreat secured, Shard turned her attention back to the Guardian. This time, the Crystalian would stand beside her, while glintstone stars tested whether the beast feared sorcery more than steel. The lion guardian fell beneath sorcery and living crystal. Shard's companion emerged almost untouched, its stone body proving far less vulnerable. Higher within Stormveil, explosive bolts guarded the next ascent. Shard climbed beyond their aim and clouded the minds of their crews, turning the castle's own siege weapons against one another. One ballista thundered without pause, scattering soldiers and shattered timber across the ramparts. By the time Shard passed beneath them, Stormveil's defenders had already done most of her work. waited beyond, crowded with soldiers and weapons, prepared to burn intruders from the stones. To Shard, so many gathered minds presented opportunity. Confusion spread through the ranks until the courtyard belonged to her. Some defenders lay dead, while the rest stood quietly beneath her influence. Either outcome was acceptable. Among the abandoned spoils, Shard discovered the prophecy painting, a final vision preserved by an artist whose spirit still lingered somewhere beyond Stormveil's walls. Shard discovered that her influence was not limited to men. One of Stormveil's Warhawks turned upon its own flock, proving that even a beast fitted with blades could be persuaded to reconsider its loyalties. The lift-side chamber offered safety and a path deeper into the castle, yet Shard had no intention of leaving Stormveil's hidden treasures to gather dust. Beyond the armory lay the castle kitchens, where a Grafted Scion wandered among the abandoned tables. Its many limbs bore witness to Godrick's obsession with strength stolen from the bodies of others. Glintstone barely slowed the creature, and its twisted mind resisted Shard's influence. The servants nearby, however, proved far more receptive. Even monsters could be troubled by poor relations with the household staff. her shield warded, and the servants drawn into battle. Shard closed upon the Scion. Steel, sorcery, and rebellion brought the grafted horror crashing to the kitchen floor. Among its spoils, she found a Highland axe, a weapon from lands far removed from Stormveil. The nearby lift promised another route through the castle, but unanswered. Before confronting the hounds below, Shard spent a stone sword key upon a sealed chamber in Stormveil. Curiosity remained nearly as dangerous as anything waiting behind the door. The sealed chamber yielded an iron wet blade, a hawk crest wooden shield, and the misericord. For once, curiosity had been rewarded without teeth, claws, or immediate regret. From the chamber, Shard glimpsed the depths beneath Stormveil. Whatever waited in that darkness would have its turn. First came the kitchens, the hounds, and the lift leading upward. Charmed hound turned without warning and tore her down. Shard had mistaken a clouded mind for obedience once again. A lesson Stormveil seemed determined to repeat. The journey back ended in another death, and 14,000 runes vanished with it. More than wealth had been lost. Those runes had already become imagined strength, and imagined strength is often the hardest to surrender. As Shard crossed the courtyard once more, the loss followed her more faithfully than any charmed soldier. She called it misfortune, then arrogance, and found little comfort in either explanation. When she returned to the kitchens, she abandoned persuasion and trusted the spear. The hounds fell without ceremony. Some minds, she decided, were better left unconvinced. The lift carried her to the Rampart Tower and another place of grace. Stormveil lay open around her, though the memory of 14,000 lost runes remained irritatingly intact. Bladed Warhawks guarded the ramparts ahead. Shard bent one creature against another, and the flock descended into a storm of feathers, steel, and confused allegiance. A path below led toward a Crucible Knight, one of the ancient warriors who had served Godfrey before the Erdtree's order took its present form. Shard wisely decided that ancient history could wait. Instead, she sought the chapel and found Sorcerer Rogier, a courteous spellblade studying Stormveil's secrets far from the castle's noisier defenders.
You might have guessed. I'm looking for a little something here in the castle. When I'm not hot-footing it from the troops, that is. But enough about me. What are you doing here in Stormveil Castle? This place is bristling with tarnished hunters, you know. They sacrifice our kind for grafting. Not exactly a place I'd stroll into without a purpose in mind. I see. Here to challenge Godrick and lay your hands upon a great rune, are you? You can see it then, I take it. The guidance of grace. Well, enjoy it while you can. I'm tarnished, like you. But unlike you, I've seen neither hide nor hair of this guidance for the longest time. Still, I won't forget how it felt when I first came here, to the lands between. I'm privy to a few magical battle arts. Would you care to learn one? As a fellow tarnished, once guided by grace, I'd love to help you.
Rogier offered glintstone ashes of war that might have suited her studies. Unfortunately, knowledge still demanded payment, and 14,000 absent runes had made Shard temporarily less enthusiastic about shopping. Shard's crystal spear remained scarcely tempered, yet Stormveil offered no shortage of opportunities to test it. When a banished knight approached with a torchbearer at his side, she clouded the servant's mind and let distrust do the rest. The knight watched Shard so intently that he failed to notice the flame rising behind him. Lantern raised, Shard descended once more into the upper reaches of the kitchens. A chest waited beyond the gloom, surrounded by the castle's more practical evidence of grafting. Arms, legs, and the remains of a troll hung above the butchery floor. In Stormveil, the kitchens prepared more than meals. Godrick's hunger was for strength, and every body within his reach was merely another collection of useful parts. A ladder carried Shard onto the castle roof, where she opened a passage back into the kitchens. Stormveil's corridors folded endlessly upon themselves, rewarding those stubborn enough to question every locked door. chest contained a pickled turtleneck. After severed limbs, bleeding trolls, and hidden passages, the castle's great treasure proved unexpectedly modest. A smithing stone nearby offered slightly better compensation. Another banished knight patrolled beyond the kitchens, clad in the battered remnants of an army long driven from its homeland. This one received no elaborate deception. Shard met him with spear and shield and left him among the castle's abandoned books. Within the chamber, she discovered the Mimic's Veil, a relic of deception once associated with Marika herself. In the hands of the cautious, even a chair or statue could become a remarkably effective disguise. Upper passages proved narrower than Shard's spear preferred. Steel caught upon railings, while a crossbowman pressed the advantage, until gravity resolved the disagreement with its usual impartiality. Beyond the lift machinery, she emerged among sleeping soldiers. Only the torchbearer remained alert, and his vigilance earned him the distinction of dying first. Shard then disturbed the sleepers' minds and waited for hostility to find a new direction. It required some encouragement, but the soldiers eventually remembered how eagerly men of Stormveil turned upon one another. From the battlements, Shard crossed another perilous gap and misjudged the descent. The fall carried her one level lower than intended, though a hidden chamber and a smithing stone made the mistake appear almost deliberate. driven from the battlements, Shard spotted a prize. Upon the highest tower, the clawed talisman waited above, fashioned in the image of the deadly talons worn by the assassins of Ravenmount. Two crossbowmen guarded the ascent. Shard met them with her spear, then quietly remembered that she was supposed to be a sorceress. The realization arrived somewhat later than the stabbing. A previous fall had denied her another tower, so she retraced the ramparts and crossed the narrow path more carefully. The hidden treasure proved to be a stone sword key, replacing the very key she had spent below. Stormveil had rewarded an elaborate detour, balanced accounting. Farther along the battlements, a banished knight marched beside a lesser servant. Shard clouded the servant's thoughts, and the old hierarchy ended beneath his weapon. Loyalty, it seemed, had been the knight's only real protection. From a bridge above the courtyard, Shard extended her influence into the ranks below. Soldiers turned upon one another, while she gathered another forgotten craftsman's knowledge, The lost runes still haunted her thoughts, though the castle was slowly paying its debt. The ballista crews soon joined her growing collection of unreliable allies. Two knights were then persuaded to settle their differences in steel. The dispute was remarkably brief. Looking back upon the siege engines that had once guarded Stormveil's entrance, Shard found them strangely less threatening now that their crews answered to her. She returned toward the first courtyard, determined to reclaim in blood what gravity and poor judgment had taken in runes. Ballista crews, guards, and wandering soldiers were drawn into the confusion. Shard advanced through the castle, beneath the protection of minds that no longer remembered whom they were meant to defend. By the time she returned to the upper courtyard, her reluctant followers had already cleared much of the resistance near the lift. A horned warrior and his hound guarded little more than a wooden great shield and the remains of Stormveil's authority. The path ahead climbed toward Godrick's secluded chamber. Warhawks watched from the walls, and somewhere beyond them waited a warrior who had come to challenge the Lord of Grafting for reasons of her own.
Be proud. You were a fine warrior. Your only mistake was your choice of master. Let the winds lift you to a higher place. Well, who do we have here? Tarnished, are you? I am Nefeli Lu. Tarnished and warrior, like you. I'm here by decree of my father. How utterly repellent this is. This grafting of Godrick's ill befits a lord. He's tainted the very winds. If you intend to challenge Godrick, I ask you call upon me. The winds run foul with his deeds. I'm certain.
Beside a fallen soldier, Shard found Nefeli Lu, a warrior of the Badlands. She offered her strength against Godrick. Shard had expected no assistance, though it was reassuring to meet someone in Stormveil whose loyalty required no sorcery. A troll and 2 soldiers guarded the final approach. Shard bent 1 soldier against the giant and waited to see how long the doomed man might endure. Instead, the troll fell first. Even the narrator was forced to reconsider the expected outcome. At last, Shard reached the secluded cell and the mist leading to Godrick. Yet the Lord of Stormveil would have to wait. Too many forgotten paths remained behind her, and she had not entered the castle merely to hurry through it. A fleeing scarab escaped with its ash of war, and Shard's stars struck the hillside instead of their target nearby. She discovered that even living jars could be swayed, and watched a smaller vessel shatter its larger kin with surprising enthusiasm. The lift returned her to Stormveil's upper paths. One careless step sent her over the edge, though the fall spared her life. On the second attempt, she crossed the ledge with considerably more respect for gravity. Below, soldiers mourned beside a fallen Warhawk. Shard left them to their grief and entered a forgotten side passage. Gathering smithing stones, Atrina's lily, and whatever wealth the castle had failed to guard. Servants crowded the chamber beyond, but Shard struck before their courage could gather. Among them, she found the manor tower shield, a defense built for broader shoulders, and a far less delicate approach to survival. A message from Rogier hinted that the secret he sought lay close. Shard opened a path from the liftside chamber into Stormveil's depths, where bats clung above a descent, untouched by daylight. With more than 14,000 runes once again in hand, she strengthened her body and balanced her flasks. The old loss had finally been replaced, though memory kept a more accurate account than any merchant. Glintstone stars tore the bats from the ceiling. allowing Shard to descend through the ruined stonework. Each ledge carried her farther beneath Stormveil and closer to whatever the castle had buried. Waited below in numbers, including one swollen matriarch. Shard bent 2 of them to her will and watched the smaller creatures tear through their own nest with disturbing efficiency. She recovered the sorcery Rancor Call, a spell born from vengeful spirits. Its presence was fitting. The depths beneath Stormveil were thick with death. And not all of it rested quietly. A malformed, ulcerated tree spirit erupted from the darkness, its body twisting like roots, forced to grow through diseased flesh. Whatever corruption slept beneath the castle had not left the Erdtree's offspring untouched. Shard's spear barely marked the creature, trapped beneath its writhing mass. She lost all sense of direction. Fled toward the ladder. The spirit reached her first, proving that escape routes are useful only when one can actually step onto them. Death did little to weaken her curiosity. Shard returned through the rats, recruiting another vicious little ally before descending once more to recover her runes and test whether sorcery might succeed where steel had failed. Was simple. Retrieve the runes, pass the creature, and perhaps punish it with glintstone from a safer distance. The tree spirit rejected every part of that arrangement. Her magic achieved almost nothing, while the beast answered with fire. Again, Shard fled through the darkness, searching for the ladder, while the creature filled every corner of her vision. Again, it denied her escape. By the third descent, this was no longer exploration. It had become a disagreement. Neither crystal sorcery nor the spear stirred much concern in the creature. Shard began to suspect that flame might speak more clearly. The great rat above, at least, proved far more willing to sleep and die. She descended for a fourth attempt, hoping only to recover her runes and reach the ladder. The tree spirit answered with fire, confusion, and another death beneath its twisting bulk. Far below Stormveil, something ancient had poisoned the roots. Death clung to the castle's foundations, twisting flesh and wood alike into shapes that no longer remembered what they had once been. Once again, Shard claimed a rat from the nest. The creature tore through its own kind with unnatural ferocity. Regrettably, it showed no interest in following her into the chamber below. Shard slipped past the spirit and reached for the escape. But the creature filled the passage, the chamber, and nearly her entire vision. The ladder remained only a few steps away, which made failure considerably more insulting. On the next descent, she ignored everything but the fallen runes and the path upward. At last, her hands found the ladder, and the tree spirit surrendered its pursuit. The ordeal had lasted far longer than intended. But the depths yielded the prince of death's pustule, a blemished fragment of flesh that strengthened resistance against the corruption of death. Shard rearranged her talismans, favoring the slow restoration of the blessed do-over relics that offered little immediate use after so many deaths below. Even a patient trickle of life seemed persuasive. She emerged from the depths battered, relieved, and unreasonably proud. Stormveil's cellar had taken several lives from her, but it had not kept her runes. Godrick still waited, unfinished paths remained. The hidden route around the main gate had not been explored, and a Crucible Knight still guarded the lower ramparts. Shard was less certain that her present sorceries would impress him. Shard prepared little ranged sorcery she trusted. None seemed particularly convincing against a Crucible Knight, but uncertainty had rarely prevented her from proceeding. Beyond the Warhawks lay another treacherous descent. Shard crossed it with unusual care, determined to face the ancient knight, even if victory demanded 5 attempts, 10 attempts, or considerably more patience than dignity. She recovered Storm Assault before approaching the knight. Her glintstone stars barely troubled his armor, so Shard rushed past him. And activated the nearby lift, ensuring that future failures would at least require less traveling. The open lift shaft offered useful distance. Shard circled its edge, intending only to keep the knight at bay. She had no desire to win through some cheap trick involving gravity. Then the Crucible Knight summoned wings, launched himself through the air, and descended directly into the shaft. One of Godfrey's ancient warriors had survived countless battles, only to be defeated by his own dramatic entrance. Shard gathered a somber smithing stone, yet found little satisfaction in the victory. She had wanted to overcome the knight, not simply watch him remove himself from the argument. Stormveil's deeper paths explored, she returned to the main gate and finally followed Gostoc's suggested route, the hidden trail beneath the castle bridge promised a quieter entrance than the one guarded by siege weapons. A ballista quickly discouraged another attempt at charming the courtyard defenders. Shard withdrew to the broken cliffs instead, climbing through the outer ruins. At Stormveil cliffside, she claimed another grace. And looked out across Limgrave. Gostoc watched from nearby, while the castle rose around them in battered stone, still magnificent despite the decay consuming its halls. From the cliffs, Shard could see the arena where Margit had fallen. For a brief moment, Stormveil seemed almost peaceful. The charmed Warhawk then struck her down with a single blow. Once again, Shard was reminded that altered loyalty remained temporary, unreliable, and frequently armed with blades. Shard recovered her runes beneath the trees. once again bent a warhawk to her will, the flock tore at itself overhead, while she wisely remained beneath the branches. Climbing from Stormveil cliffside, she claimed a torchbearer among the guards. He fought with unexpected devotion, hurling fire into his former companions, while Shard continued upward. Within the wooden passages, she recovered the hook claws and passed through chambers crowded with axe bearers and soldiers armed with fire pots. Stormveil's hidden route was no safer than the gate. It was merely narrower. At the end of the passage, Gostoc's trap closed behind her. A banished knight waited in the dark, confident that stone walls and a locked door had already decided the battle. The knight was mistaken. Shard met him alone and brought him down with spear and shield. Claiming the rusty key that opened the path above. beyond the rooftops, exile soldiers guarded the outer walls. Shard cleared the passage and recovered the brick hammer, a weapon of impressive weight and absolutely no relevance to her chosen discipline. Near the lift, another Banished Knight raised his halberd. When he left, the camera followed him upward and left Shard staring helplessly at the floor. The knight required only one strike to finish what poor visibility had begun. She returned from the Rampart Tower to recover her runes, but stepped from the descending lift a fraction too late. The ledge passed beneath her feet, and another fortune vanished into the shaft. Pride demanded another attempt. A doorway trapped her movement. The camera surrendered half the battlefield, and Stormveil claimed yet another death. By then, the knight had become less an enemy than a personal insult. brought him down. The victory offered little satisfaction between the night, the lift, and her own impatience. The castle had consumed more than 20,000 runes. She reached the secluded cell with almost nothing left, only a handful of golden runes spared her from arriving at the round table, hold entirely penniless.
Well, I took you've no man to lay out your...
Before smithing Master Hugh, Shard lowered her head and offered what remained. Her crystal spear was strengthened to the 2nd rank, though the stone required for another improvement remained. Rodrika could offer no further aid without rarer grave glovewort, with weapon improved and spirit unchanged. Shard returned to Stormveil, poorer in runes, but considerably richer in lessons she had not asked to learn. Shard returned to the secluded cell and tried to leave Stormveil's less dignified lessons behind her, shield warded and spear in hand. She crossed the mist to face Godrick the Grafted.
Mighty dragon, thou art a true-born heir. Lend me thy strength, O kindred. Deliver me unto greater heights. Well, lowly tarnished, playing as a lord, I command thee, kneel! I am the lord of all that is golden.
She entered without summoning the Crystalian. Godrick's stolen limbs granted him strength, but not grace. Shard met him at close range, turning to sorcery only when his storms made steel too dangerous. longer sustain him. Godrick severed his own arm and claimed the head of a fallen dragon. The Lord of Grafting had spent his life borrowing greatness. Now even dragonfire became another stolen limb. Drove him close to death, only to mistime a single escape. The second blast found her before she could clear its path. One mistake was enough, and victory remained behind the mist. She returned without changing the terms of the battle. No spirit would carry her through it. Godrick would fall to her spear, her sorcery, and the lesson purchased by the first defeat. Reached the dragon's flame once more. This time, Shard held her ground and dismantled the grafted lord at close range. Godrick's borrowed strength failed him, as borrowed things so often do.
We'll return together to our home, bathed in rays of gold.
From his remains, she claimed Godrick's great rune and the remembrance of the grafted. The victory granted enough strength for 2 further improvements, both devoted to the body Stormveil had tested so thoroughly.
What a pathetic excuse for a... Oh! This weasel was... Godrick was always looking down on me. He got what he bloody deserved thanks to you. He had an ugly heart, an uglier countenance, and met the ugliest of ends, eh?
Gostoc celebrated his former master's ruin with suspicious enthusiasm. Shard purchased a buckler from him and left the gatekeeper to his monologue, his freedom, and whatever remained of Godrick beneath his boots. Stormveil had been conquered, though hardly with elegance. Margit and Godrick had fallen quickly. The castle's ladders, lifts, narrow doors, and lesser inhabitants had proven far more persistent. Beyond the castle, Shard found Hyetta waiting near the road to Liurnia. The blind maiden asked for a shabriri grape, unaware, or perhaps unwilling to know, what such pale fruit truly was.
Hello? Is someone there? Would you donate any shabriri grapes in your possession to me? I'm on a pilgrimage in search of the distant light. And when I eat one of those grapes, I can feel the light in the back of my eyes. Oh, many thanks to you. Now I can feel the distant light once more. You are most kind indeed. May the blessing of the fingers be upon you. You are most kind indeed. May the blessing...
With Limgrave behind her, Shard looked toward the drowned lands of Liurnia and the distant academy hidden within its mists. Stormveil had taken enough from her for one journey, for now even a sorceress required rest.